All right, I think we're live. Let's go check it out as we always do. Welcome back. Uh, I'm, it's been a crazy couple of weeks, is for sure. We have a lot to talk about, but I just want to make sure that we're all live on YouTube and X. Okay, good. YouTube, X, looks like we're live. And there we go. Okay, beautiful. All right, good, 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 good. Okay, so since the last time we talked, I was getting ready to go to the conference, the AMS Conference for Broadcast and Digital Meteorology, where I was presenting my thoughts on how I built all this, all thanks to you guys. Um, it was eye opening and amazing. So I want to share some of that. Uh, Also, there's some news with Noah that I want to touch on as well. So, first, book of the week. It is from an authors that I met at the conference. These are excellent scientists. They deal with one's atmospheric scientists. They actually got married just before the conference, and part of their honeymoon was actually going to the conference, presenting their book and presenting the the point of the book is to answer questions about oceans and atmosphere. So stuff like, let's say, the airplanes, and when they produce their little discharge behind them, that's just water vapor. It's not chemicals. Okay, so it explains all of that in here, right? So this is called Megalodons, Mermaids, and Climate Change: Answers to Your Ocean and Atmospheric Questions by Ellen Prager and Dave Jones. Outstanding book. Let me push this right here. And hey, they signed it for me, so that's pretty cool. So this book is not meant to be controversial. It just is. It has really good pictures here. Take a look at that. It has a lot of good explanations about hurricanes and how they develop, whether or not you can control them or not. Hint, you can't. Um, can't we see the 30-day forecast? Why it's difficult? So there's a lot of it's not math heavy. This is a great book if you want to, let's say, talk to your parents or people who may not be math focused, but really enjoy learning about science. It's an excellent book. So I strongly suggest checking it out. So I will eventually, I'm going to get the link to where they sell the book, but definitely you could definitely find it on Amazon. And it's printed by Columbia University Press in New York. So you could probably find it there. But, it's an excellent book. David Jones is a meteorologist, 35-year veteran, and Ellen Prager is a marine scientist. So, again, a really excellent book. I would strongly suggest getting it because it's a good education. Another thing, which I'm trying to work on a bit of a deal here, I got a couple of cool um, partnerships I'm going to be working with that help us talk about stuff like the new electrical grid that we're going to need if everyone wants to do electric, or even if you don't, it protects you from stuff like solar activity that can knock out the grid. Okay, because it can happen, but there's a big push to basically put a lot of our electrical wires protected and underground. It is good. It will be a difficult challenge, but it's something that the private sector and public sector are going to have to work on to really address. Also, I'm sure you've seen this weather radios, Midland weather alert radio. I got one here. I got an extra one as well. This is really, really great to get for anyone, really, because it allows you to keep an eye on the watches and warnings. But also, here's something I didn't know that they have. And again, we'll see whether we work on a partnership or selling some of this stuff. But you see this? This I didn't know about. You connect this, and this is for those who are hearing impaired or visual impaired. And you could put it on your pillowcase or somewhere nearby you. And obviously, if you're blind, uh, the vibration here will help you with that. If you're deaf, this like flashes and lights up. So both of them together are a great option. I'm going to look to see if I could set this up in the office as well because sometimes I get tunnel vision, so it actually might help me as well. Um, But these are two great options. I talked to individuals who actually manufacture those. They won't be impacted by anything that's going on with NOAA, by the way. That's getting fully funded. So that's certainly some good news. As far as my experience at the conference, it was something that was probably one of the most rewarding experiences I've had in my career. I am very, very happy that I went. I gave a presentation about how to build this. The thing is that what I've done here, what we've built here, is actually something that's very unique in meteorology. Um, there is a lot of changes that are going to be going on with broadcast meteorology, and some of it is a little bit troubling that we heard. They want to push AI, and they want to take the meteorologists that work on TV, take their likeness, and instead of having them do like a noon cast or when they do the live break in, just to replace them with the AI, thinking that hey, you'll just have to work less and you just have to type it in. Yeah, but you're also taking their likeness. So there is a lot of concern about that. Um, and, when you come out in broadcast meteorology, you don't get paid much. I mean, they're offering for people who are just out of college $16 an hour. Then they see what I do and they see the community that we built here and say, I can do this and make more than what they're offering for me to go on a TV station. So, one of the things I'm going to be doing as the chairman of the board for the CDM, that's the Certified Digital Meteorologists, is to start to push that and show people, hey, this is what I do. It's not easy, it's a long haul, but you know what? I got the freedom to do whatever I want. And we could talk about whatever we want. We have freedom. We could do whatever we want. And no one is taking my likeness for AI unless they're going to be paying me a good chunk of money. Right. Okay, so and if you have any questions about the conference, again, it's amazing to be able to present in front of some of your heroes, that you grew up with, like Jim Cantori, for example. You're doing a presentation in front of an individual like that. You don't know what to say. It's just it's an amazing experience. Talking about amazing experiences, while we were there, we were starting to get word about what's going on with the NOAA budget. And you probably heard about the votes that are going on. I don't want to get political here. Okay. That is something that I definitely don't want to do. Um, but here's what I see happening here. I think these cuts, there's going to be a lot of debate as to whether or not these cuts are actually going to go through or not. In terms of there's usually secondary bills that adjust the spending, and then they try to save this and save that and adjust the money there, and they always find these secondary bills, right? So I think that's going to happen, especially if you're talking about the severe weather labs, because they're talking about shutting down all the labs. One of those labs is the severe weather lab in Oklahoma. That's like where we get all of our research on tornadoes and severe weather, and then model guidance. And that's why they're starting to cut down the model guidance. So they're getting rid of the NAM, which was planned to do so, but they're speeding up that process, and they're getting rid of the HRR, and they're reducing the amount of data that they're collecting, like for Alaska and some of the planes that go out for the hurricanes. I get that you have to cut costs, but in the long run, I don't think this is a smart idea. And I'm just going to explain why very carefully. First of all, if you have less staff for NOAA, and less staff for the National Weather Service, especially your offices, you're going to miss watches and mornings. And uh, it looks like there was a stream error in Facebook. Okay, I'll just continue. Everyone else looks good though. Like I was saying, you're gonna have an error with, you're gonna have problems. Okay, you're gonna miss watches and mornings, and people's lives are going to be in danger. That is that cannot be disputed. The labs, this is what I see is going to happen. Initially, we are going to suffer. We're going to get less data. We're going to get less research. The private sector is going to step in. Now, how that looks, I'm not sure, but I can tell you it's not going to be free, because private sector means profit, which I am all for. I don't mind profit at all. Who am I to say that someone can't make profit? But the difference between the government being in charge of this research and private sector being in charge of the research is that in terms of forecasting data, you don't want a private company in charge of satellite data for hurricanes, because then you limit the number of people that can get that data, which can be a problem when you're forecasting for a hurricane that impacts everybody. You don't want to limit research on climate, on a variety of things. And you don't want to limit the ability to collect that data. And one of the examples of limiting data that's going to happen is that you're going to reduce the uh, expansion of data to collect for ocean temperatures. Okay. The reason why this is a problem is that if you don't have the correct ocean temperatures ahead of tropical systems, then you might not get the correct idea of the potential intensification, which means you might not be able to warn people ahead of time. So, what will happen is that the private sector is going to step up, and they are going to invest in this, and they are going to charge a fee, and they're going to charge a fee back to the government, because the National Weather Service is like, hey, we need that data. Not a problem. Here's the cost. And it's going to be more than what we're paying now as taxpayers. And in the long run, this is actually going to cost us more than the way that we have it set up now. That's how I see things set up. As far as me, I'm preparing for it. Um, I'm boarding up on my research and studies on convective weather, because I don't trust these models. The new model coming out definitely has a warm bias when it comes to cold air masses, so that's going to be an issue. The new RRFS, so that's something that we're definitely going to have to watch out for. So interesting times ahead. I mean, no matter what you think from politics, I'm not asking you to give me your opinion on that. But what I am saying is that um, for every action, there's an equal opposite reaction. And if you cut this funding of one of the few government agencies that actually enhances GDP, there's going to be repercussions. There's also going to likely be, once you get that first real major storm impacted and people don't get their watches and warnings, this whole process is going to get flipped on its head. Don't be surprised by that at all. So I'm preparing for it, and I got some business plans considering it, because there's going to be a need to cover these issues. And you can bet my mind here is already thinking about how to do that. So interesting times ahead, and we'll see what happens. Now we got that out of the way, let's take a look at what is going on in the tropics. And again, as always, we'll go over all the weather stuff. I'll keep an eye on the Mets, who are driving me nuts, but they actually, just before this, they actually hit a ton of home runs. So they're up 5-0, and then I went on a sneezing fit. So maybe that means that they're going to break out. I don't know. But my body reacted to the home runs by me sneezing for 15 minutes. It was crazy. So let's talk about. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Ah, figures. Gotta love Facebook. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so first we got the tropics, and we're watching two features here. One that is actually monitored by the NHC, one that is not. This one right here, I'm keeping an eye on. There is signs here that I could pick up some subtropical characteristics here. It's currently cold core, but you see this convection down here. Let's see if I can zoom in, and I will try the magic pen and see if I can. There we go. Okay, so this one right here. Okay, and specifically this convection right here has my attention. As this continues to move towards the Bahamas, don't be surprised if it picks up some subtropical characteristics. I don't think it's a threat to the United States, but it might actually enhance the rip currents, rip tides for next week. The more significant concern is along the East Coast here. And let me go right here. So right now, let me see if I got this. This area right here is what I'm keeping an eye on. You have a stationary front right about here that right now just supports cold core circulation, cold core development. So you kind of get these little weak lows here and here, very, very disorganized. The problem in this situation is that this kind of festers around like a wound, and eventually you get a warm core circulation. And these loads fade away, and a new warm core circulation gains more and more strength and starts to develop more convection around it. And probably by the end of this weekend, you're going to get a nice healthy area of precipitation. And let me just clear this out real fast. Nice area of precipitation starting to show up right in here. And it's going to gain more and more of a tropical circulation, but most likely it's going to be a subtropical low. Now, I don't expect it to have a direct impact on us, but it does make the forecast for early next week a little bit more questionable. Now, remember what I said, I like using the precipitable water value to kind of pick out these tropical systems. And this is a great tool, and this is a perfect example as to why. In our first low pressure system up here, notice we're getting more and more of a focus of this deeper red here. This is a sign of low level warm core circulation. And most likely, again, I see this as more as a subtropical structure, but certainly something is brewing out here. Now, the good news is that there's going to be a nice southwesterly flow over the Western Atlantic, so anything that develops is going to get kicked right out. Our other feature, well, this looks even more robust, and this is for Saturday. You can see it's organizing very nicely, and you can see the heart of here of this precipitable water value focus. This tells me we got a nice little warm core low starting to organize here. Most likely either a subtropical or tropical depression. A lot of dry air to the north. We're going to be absolutely beautiful. But the one concern I have for early next week is that this gets awfully close to the coast and we have our cold front approaching. Combination of these factors could lead to a surprise heavy rainfall event for Monday night into Tuesday. I'm not sure yet, but it's something I'm watching very carefully because if this is off by just a little bit, then we're bringing some pretty heavy rainfall right into the Jersey Shore, which of course is kind of good news because this is going to kill any potential for a drought. Our water table is rebounding rapidly. These are all good news compared to where we were last year. But now we're starting to get to the point, if we start to introduce more tropical systems, we're going to have to start really to dive into the potential for river flooding, stream flooding. Certainly, we've already seen urban flooding. So this is something that we're really going to have to really keep an eye on. And I think this is going to be a theme as we go on through the summer. As you know, the forecast has been Western Atlantic Ridge, nice ridge over the plains, trough here. And if you have an upper level low or weakness here in the Tennessee River Valley, you got something brewing over here. That's where we can get in trouble with remnant precipitation from tropical low pressure systems or even a direct impact from a tropical low pressure system. So I've been saying this since what? March? And well, we're here. We're here. We're in that weather pattern, and that's something that we really have to be mindful of and keep an eye on. Now, why are we in that weather pattern? Let's just go over some of the forcing mechanisms. Again, tropical forcing is as weak as you could possibly get. We have no El Nino nor La Nina. We have warm neutral. Okay, premium members, we talked about that this morning. But we don't really have any forcing. I mean, look at this. Look at the MJO. It's as neutral as you could possibly get. I mean, geez, it's in the circle of death. So literally no tropical forcing is really driving this weather pattern. The primary forcing is coming from the stratosphere, and it's coming from this feature right here. So remember, when we have a warm bubble in the stratosphere, okay, that's pressing down on the troposphere, and that leads to an upper level low that is persistent over this area. Now, if you get this upper level low that's persistent in this area, that tends to support a ridge around the Rockies and the plains, and another one over the Western Atlantic. And you can see the expansion of the cold anomalies here. So that ridge gets even more enhanced and basically locks in that weak trough around the Eastern Great Lakes, Ohio River Valley, and Tennessee River Valley. This is our traffic cop for the summer and probably the early fall. Without any type of tropical forcing, the atmospheric angular momentum is weak. There's really nothing that stands out. So as a result, what this tells me is that this is going to be a humid summer. It's going to be a wet summer. It's going to be a summer where we're predominantly focused on temperatures between the mid 80s and mid 90s. I would not be surprised if we had our hottest, not the most humid, the hottest weather conditions in terms of our high temperatures around 100 degrees back in June, because that was all driven by an upper level ridge sitting right over the northern mid Atlantic. I don't think we're going to see that much for the rest of the summer. The ridge is either going to be focused in the plains or focused over the western Atlantic. That's where I see this playing out. And so here we go. Here's the latest guidance. It's kind of showing that very nicely. Again, we continue to see this weakness showing up here. And in the extended mile guidance out 46 days throughout much of the summer, it's the same thing. We really don't see much of a change. And we really don't during the summer months, okay? The summer months are far more stagnant when it comes to weather patterns because you don't really have much of a forcing mechanism to change, especially this year. So what you see is what you get. And what we see is a pattern that's going to feature a lot of humidity and a lot of rain potential. And that's what I see setting up for us as we move forward. And again, there's the AAM going from negative to positive. We got a nice stretch where it's going to be relatively weak. And then that takes us to our current weather pattern. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. Not for everybody, but I like the idea of a few severe thunderstorms around the Poconos. But why not along the coastal plain? I'm going to explain. First of all, we have our stationary front that's basically just kind of washing out. We have some influence from the Atlantic here with the southeasterly wind. Nice westerly winds over the interior. Temperatures generally comfortable, especially compared to the past couple of days. Not really seeing a deep return of that tropical moisture. This deep tropical moisture is what set up the severe threat for yesterday because with all this moisture in the atmosphere, when you're exceeding 2.0 inches in precipitable water, that opens up the potential for hail, downburst wind gusts, frequent vivid lightning, and yes, isolated tornadoes. Now, the National Weather Service and the SPC did not indicate anything about tornadoes, but I did. I mentioned it a couple of times, especially to all the premium members. Why did I do that? Well, I specifically focused northwest and southeast of the urban heat island effect. You have a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. You have very impressive CAPE, over 3,000 joules per kilogram. So you have a lot of instability in the atmosphere, a lot of rising motion. The urban heat island effect causes a very weak twist, cyclonic twist, around the lowest portions of the atmosphere below 9 to 25 millibars. And we've seen this repeatedly, and we saw it again yesterday. So this is why I mentioned, hey, watch out for an isolated tornado because everything else aside from the synoptic support is there. And unfortunately, that's exactly what panned out, and that's why we had an F0 in terms of that tornado right about here. And we actually picked it up live when I did a live break-in. I think it was the 5 o'clock one, where I was right in the middle of the update, And it popped right up, and we were able to look at the radar data for it. So, looking at our setup for tomorrow, here's our upper level winds. And this feature right here is what's going to be swinging on through. And this is the feature that is primarily focused over central New York and northeastern Pennsylvania. It's not as strong for us down along the coastal plain. On the Warrior Vapor satellite picture, you can see that shortwave very clearly, very impressive. The whole trough, the long wave trough, is approaching us. So we have the long wave trough axis approaching us. This is going to lead to a lot of subsidence over the region, sinking air. So we have a lot of competing features happening here. So when you have competing features, you kind of have to really close in and pinpoint where. Let me move this book out of the way. You really have to pinpoint where you want to focus your severe thunderstorm potential. And I think it's going to be right here because of all those factors. So when I look at the 500 millibar PVA for tomorrow, where's my best divergence and diffluence? Right about here. Again, a lot of your forcing is focused more towards central New York. Get a few rogue thunderstorms here. In the evening, it's even more focused over northeastern Pennsylvania, off towards the Hudson River Valley, and also over southern New England. Not so much over the coastal plain. Same thing when we jump down to 850 millibars, go to about 36 hours. Same type of signal showing up here. So your best lifting is basically over the interior. We don't have anywhere near the moisture transport, okay? We're not anywhere near 2 inches here. So we have a lot less moisture to work in the atmosphere. So not as much as vivid lightning, lower potential for hail. There's still a slight chance, again, over the Poconos and the Catskills. And, overall, I'm not seeing a great focus here anywhere further south. And where is it? There's a Cape. Again, you have some around 1,500 joules per kilogram, but overall, around 500 joules per kilogram is found on the coastal plain. So this is not a major severe threat. I don't see this as being a tornado threat either because the focus really is around the I-95 corridor. Let's see what the latest HRR is doing, as long as we have a chance to actually use it before it gets closed out. And I think it's going to be after the winter season, mid 2026. And so far, there's that signal showing up. We'll use the NAM here. And again, showing kind of the same signal here showing up. But notice what happens once it dives towards the coastal plain. It breaks up. Why? Well, this cold front is going to lose a lot of its punch once it reaches the coastal plain. And you're also losing a lot of instability. Now, I'm not saying you won't see thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon and evening. What I'm saying is that they won't be as intense. Heavy downpours, occasional lightning, wind gusts around 40, 45 miles per hour. But I don't see this as being a severe threat. If you happen to be heading out to a baseball game or something of that nature, you'll probably have to deal with delays and whatnot. But again, I don't see this as a severe threat aside from basically your northern interior, because that's when we have a cross section of instability, upper level support, a little bit enhanced moisture transport out ahead of the cold front, all coming together at just the right time at the peak period of instability to support some severe thunderstorms. And then the good news is that this weekend, well, here, let me show you some really good news. All right. First of all, it's QT for northeastern Pennsylvania. Again, there's your instability. Capes around 1,500 joules per kilogram, a little bit below that. 1 inch precipitable water value. Again, this certainly supports some thunderstorms and maybe 1 or 2 severe thunderstorms. But let me get to the good news. And that good news is right here. Where are you? I know I had you right. No. I must have moved it. Man, and I wanted to really be excited about this. Temperatures. Okay, all right. There we are. Dew point. I knew I had it somewhere around here. Okay. Friday afternoon, 4th of July. Dew points in the 50s down to the coast. Very low humidity, very comfortable conditions. I really am excited about this because it is going to be beautiful outside, and that's going to continue on through Saturday. And then Sunday, we get a little bit more humid, but not too bad. Still 50s and 60s. So, yeah, yard work, grilling, go to the beach, go to the pool. The point is that it is going to be beautiful. So, there's some good news there. I'm battling something. I don't know what. And again, I was the one who went outside. Figures. Okay, now that we got through the weather stuff, now it's time to answer questions. And it looks like we have quite a few already. So it's going to get pretty interesting. So I'll dive through. First, we'll do all the premium stuff. And then the premium dashboard where all the premium members answer all their questions. We'll check on the Mets. They're up 5-0 still, but they still have to get to the bullpen. So we'll see what happens. Okay, so Card, as always, good evening. Looking at Earth New School at 70 millibars appears as a bit of a warmer spot in the northeastern Canada to eastern Hudson Bay. It also coincides with 250 millibar winds. Yes, that's it's slightly warmer, not significant. The more significant warming is over the northern Pacific, but that's why we see that trough generally dominating much of eastern Canada. Still a lot of amplification at 250 millibars. I think that's because we're seeing that shift to an easterly QBO. I think that's why we have that amplification. Atlantic Basin is so dead tropically, even the 18Z can't spin up a tropical system. I would not be surprised if we see something spin up off the southeast coast here. I really, really would not be surprised. The two storms that we've had so far, extremely marginal. Extremely marginal. But again, it seems that NOAA and National Hurricane Center is very much more aggressive in following up on these subtropical low pressure systems and the potential for very brief certification of these tropical systems. I think this is due to the fact we're seeing enhanced observational capabilities. We'll see once this budget is passed and some of these cuts are made if they're able to if that same rate continues, because part of the cuts that we're seeing is reduction in using drones, reduction in flights into these tropical systems. So it's going to be, and also some of the satellite data is being pulled back, possibly by August. So we'll see what happens. Observations, sunspot, more sunspot groups than we have in a while, but most of them are very small and they're stable. Yeah, there's not much really changing in the sun right now. I do expect a little bit of an uptick because it had a nice crash the past 2 months, but it should increase once again and shift back more towards the stable, slow progression towards a solar minimum that we'll have in about 2 or 3 years. Did you see space weather bit on an interstellar object that is speeding into the system and is supposed to pass between excuse me, Earth and Mars? Sure hope it isn't space station. Um, I haven't honestly. I haven't been focusing on that. Oh, good foul ball. But I'll definitely check that out later. Definitely. Thanks for pointing out, Card. Wouldn't need to be cut if cuts put or I'm not sure how to read that. Okay. Wouldn't need to be cut if cuts made in the so-called mandatory spending big budget redistribution programs. We'll see. I mean, we're going to see what happens. Competition to make better products in the private sector. Government agencies are not free. Oh, look, I'm not saying that government agencies are free, but but to fully fund NOAA, it costs something like $4 a year, 33 cents a month. I mean, I'll pay $30 a month to get everything fully funded. It doesn't bother me, but it might be more cost prohibitive for us to do the 33 cents rather than the private company doing it, and then the government having to pay $30 a month. You see what I'm saying? Like the cost doesn't make much sense. The cost benefit analysis. I will say that there were those who thought that only NASA could handle launching stuff into space. And yeah, no, I get it. I look, I am definitely, don't get me wrong, I'm definitely free market, right? I'm definitely a capitalist. Obviously, I look what I built, right? Um, but understand that even in a situation of NASA, right? Um, those private companies still take some of the important data that you need to launch those vehicles from NASA, right? In terms of weather industry, which I'm a part of, um, I can't afford to launch a satellite into space to track the sea surface temperatures, but we could do that with government. There are some things that the government is better at doing than the private sector. And there's many things that the private sector is better at doing than the government. And what you have to do is figure out what those things are. Collecting international data like sea surface temperatures, that's better for the government to do. Forecasting specifically for a crane operator, that's better for the private sector to do. So you see, like there's different things that you could do. So just there has to be more thought behind it. I mean, look, everyone knows I'm all for reducing budgets and getting our debt ourselves out of debt. Don't get me wrong, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. Just saying. Yankees lost 12-5 yesterday and are losing 8-0 today. Wow. I didn't realize they were that bad. Holy smokes. But hey, Mets are finally winning. Maybe they'll start turning the corner. Looks like the SPC has the New York City Metro on slight risk for tomorrow. Seems a bit overdone based on how you had indicated as far as the underlying dynamics for tomorrow. Has there been a change? The SPC sometimes tends to expand that potential, understandably, to cover all their bases, right? Where I have the freedom to be a little bit more focused, right? Um, I think that the better focus is to the north and west of the cities. Why would you include New York City? Well, the trough is passing just to the north of New York City. And if it drops just a tad bit further south, you could make a case for a severe thunderstorm getting into Manhattan. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think that's basically their thinking. Let's see. The 12Z European AI guidance shows what you talked about for Monday. PWAT approaching 2.5 inches from tropical system. Also, the cold front wouldn't be moving as fast. Yeah, I'm sniffing out a heavy rainfall potential Monday afternoon through Tuesday. I'll have more updates on that tomorrow morning. I want to get more data on it. But if that thing festering off the southeast coast shifts just a little bit further west, and that cold front's a little bit slower, the Jersey Shore, let's say along and southeast of I-95, has the potential here for a surprise heavy rainfall event for Monday evening into Tuesday morning. That I'm going to be watching very carefully. Okay, let's take a look and see what's going on in the social media world. Take a look at, whoa, look at this. YouTube is active. All right, let's see here. Do you think we'll get more heat waves where places hit 100 degrees in July and August? You know, I can't say no 100%. Um, I think it's going to be more rare. I think it's going to be more of an anomaly than the theme of the season. I do think we'll see a plenty of days of the heat index exceeding 100 degrees, but I think because you're going to have the focus of the ridge off the East Coast over the Western Atlantic, and we having more of a southwesterly flow, we're going to have the higher potential of thunderstorms. And if you have cold fronts just to your northwest and the potential for thunderstorms, you're going to get your temperatures knocked down. Now, saying that, don't be surprised if you see models like the European guidance illustrating or showing temperatures over 100 degrees 5 to 10 days out, because the GFS has a little bit of a cold bias, and the European, especially in the summer, has a warm bias, especially when it comes to these tropical air masses. So overall, I would suspect that we'll see hints of 100-degree days, but overall, I think we're going to be right around that 95 mark when we're at the height of our hot weather patterns. What is wrong with the Mets? Uh oh boy. Well, that's a long. You know what's wrong? They got hit with a ton of injuries at the worst possible time. Um, But the good news is that everyone's getting ready to come back. I think we're going to see a rebound in July. Um, and I would not be surprised if we see a couple trades for the bullpen, because that needs to be addressed. But I also think that, hey, let's have the bad times now and then kick butt in August, September, and October. So I'm fine with that. And compared to last year, I'd rather take this. We're only a game or two out of first place. Let's see here. Why would the urban heat corridor have less effect in tomorrow's setup to provide a spin up compared to past Tuesday? Okay, so here's the reason why. Okay. In yesterday's event, the focus and the support for severe thunderstorms was on the I-95 corridor. So you had all the support, all the other dynamics in place. You had a lot of southwesterly winds in the upper levels and the mid levels, like at 850 millibars. But the lowest levels, below 925 millibars, that's where you could get that little weak spin up. In tomorrow's case, you don't have anywhere near as much moisture. Your best dynamics are all focused to the north and west of the I 95 corridor. So you have a lot going against it in the first place, and you're not going to have as strong of a thermal gradient on the I-95 corridor, nor as much moisture, nor as much upper level support than you did on Tuesday. So as a result, it's not as much of a factor. If you had this trough digging in and heading towards Philadelphia, then rather than towards Scranton, then you then can open up that potential. But because you don't, because all of your best dynamics are all focused more towards central New York, northeastern Pennsylvania, the central Hudson River Valley, in that factor, that's why you don't introduce that threat into your analysis. No, it's 33 cents a month per taxpayer. So every taxpayer pays 33 cents a month for NOAA. All of it. Everything. The ocean, the research, the meteorologist, everything. That whole service. Everything from oceanography, geometry. I'm doing good. Geology, um, all of it. Okay, all of it. 33 cents a month per taxpayer. Again, I think it's worthwhile. Let's see here. New York City had 4 straight days of low temperature 80s and above last week. How unusual is that? It's becoming more and more of an occurrence because of global warming. This is a factor that I've been pointing out for a long time. I stay away from, oh, the temperatures hit 100 degrees, blah, 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 because you could always go back to the 1930s to say, hey, it also got up to 100 and whatever during the Dust Bowl, and we had intense heat here. Valid, right? My point, I actually talked about this at the seminar, at the conference. it's not the temperatures, it's the humidity, the amount of moisture in the atmosphere, which is directly connected to all of this theory. Okay, all of the working parameters of this theory. So the additional CO2 screws with the stratosphere, which allows the stratosphere to get colder. The colder stratosphere contracts. That allows the troposphere to expand. The expansion of the troposphere does enhance temperatures, but more importantly, it increases the volume of water vapor in the atmosphere. You throw in an active volcano, there we go, and you mix all that in, and it's like a steroid. Then you added urban heat-on effect, which traps in the heat during the day and the moisture, and that's how you get more frequent mornings with temperatures in the 80s. So previously, like in the 70s and 60s and 50s, it was incredibly rare. Now we're seeing it more and more during the summer, and it's becoming more of a frequent event. So, and this is how you kind of put it all together. I told him, look, find me a chart on precipitable water values, because I'm telling you, if you compare the precipitable water values and the amount of humidity from the 1930s and go to now, right? You could go from the 1930s to the 2020s, right? And you just see the straight line going straight up. And that to me is far more of a valid argument than temperatures ever will. Okay, because that that factor here, that is done via equations, and you can't fudge that, right? You can't, even if you try to change the temperatures, you can't change the pressure, the 500 millibar anomalies. You can't change the water vapor pressure. That's a constant law. So it, to me, it's a far more stable equation. It's a far, you can't fudge around with it, right? Because you can't change the water vapor law, water vapor pressure law. So that's why I like using it. Update on local ocean water temperatures. Local ocean water temperature. Do I even have that? See, that's one of the things that are kind of missing of late in the model data. But let's see here. Ocean temperatures. Oh, oh, Brewers finally hit a home. Oh, Yelich. Oh, he's due. So it's 5-1 Mets. Driving me nuts. Let's see here. Okay. So currently temperatures going to seatemperature.info. That's usually a good one for me. I like to use this a lot, especially when we're dealing with people who are fishing. Let's see here. See if I can find some data here for ocean temperatures. Sea surface temperature is actually right now at 72.9 degrees Fahrenheit. Not bad. According to NOAA, not bad at all. And let's see if we have any other data. Let me try to find one from NOAA here. One second. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Okay, let's see what we have here. Recent temperatures. I'll pull this up here. This is from the ncei.noaa.gov. This is one of the things that they're talking about, either moving and reducing the budget or closing down completely. Let's see here. Rhode Island, Connecticut, 64.8. Connecticut sea surface temperatures around the 70s. Cape May, we're at 73.2. Long Island is missing. One talks about the batteries around 73.2. Sandy Hook, 78.8. So there we go. There's some of your data. And this is again from ncei.noaa.gov. ei.noaa.gov. Let's see here. Yeah, it definitely, yeah, that heat wave did create a couple of records. I'm glad I stayed away from the forecast of everyone getting 106, but still, it was pretty impressive. I had a weather station in my backyard for 12 years and have the complete record of it. What values should I plot to evaluate the steady increase in nasty weather? Um, Relative humidity, pressure, high and low temperatures, obviously, almost all of it, really, to get a really complete picture. For your info on higher low temperature, for the first time, two back-to-back Junes had 10 or more days with lows in the 70s. This June had 11. Only three other Junes have had more lows in the 70s. Inshore waters are in the upper 50s. Yeah, well, that makes sense. It takes some of the outer shore that are being influenced by the Gulf Stream, so that makes sense. So the inlets probably and different salinity too. It looks like Tidwell's starting to run out, and yeah, and the Mets are Metsing once again. We'll see how long this works out. Sixth inning. I don't know why, but for the past 3 weeks, the sixth or seventh inning has been murder for the Mets. I don't know what to say. Are we gonna have a snowy winter for the Northeast? That I don't know. Stay tuned. Let's see here. Anything on Facebook or let's see. I got to see one thing on X. NOAA should move under the Department of Defense, in my opinion. Use satellites that can allow for both departments. Possible, yeah. They certainly would get funding then. Let's see here. Seems to me the last couple of years, with all the pitching injuries, many of are muscle injuries. Yes, that's because everyone's trying to throw 3,000 miles per hour. Same period coincides with trust. Okay. Let's see. Same period coincides with drastic reduction in particular pollutants, which allows more sunlight to hit the oceans, as well as gradual warm up at the end of the ice age. Okay, so the reduction in the pollutants that's only recently, and that really doesn't match up to the rest of the time period. But it's certainly a factor, definitely. End of the ice age, definitely a factor. Okay. The problem is not so much to me. The problem has never been temperatures because I'm looking at this. I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. The problem is the rate of change, and I never considered it to be a crisis. And I think that's horrible wording. I think that's a horrible way to go about it. But we need to be aware of what we're doing, okay? And that's not a bad thing. We can adjust our technologies, improve our technologies, and reduce our need to use quote unquote fossil fuels. I don't think that's a bad thing, especially if we find energy sources that are more efficient. um, so I am more of a technology guy. I'm looking forward to what we can do with fusion. I think we can do more nuclear. I think we can do more solar. I'm excited about that. Um, it's not perfect. Nothing is. Well, fusion would be perfect, but we got some time to get to that. But at the same time, if you put in carbon into the atmosphere, you're going to have a reaction. Again, very basic physics. For every reaction, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That's indisputable. Yep. Yeah. Uh, yes, I took a geology class. It wasn't You can make it a minor if you want to. So especially if you want to go more into climate research. So once you get through sophomore year, you got different you pretty much have all of your base classes. Base climatology, base geology, physics, chemistry, whatnot. Then after your sophomore year, once you go into your junior and senior year, you start to focus on what you want to do for your career. So if you want to work on climate, then you have to have more classes in geology. If you want to work in creating models, you want to have more classes in math theory and also computer science. If you want to focus in on forecasting, then you focus more, like how I did, on synoptic meteorology. If you want to focus more on building instruments and finding new ways, new satellites and whatnot, then you take classes specifically for that type of track. So as you can see, you shift depending on what you want to do for your career. Any thoughts on the impact of volcanic eruption in Indonesia a couple weeks ago? Yeah, not high enough to have an impact thus far from what I've seen. It's nowhere near what we saw a couple of years ago. But thus far, it doesn't look like it's having any type of significant impact, but I'm keeping an eye on it. The materials in solar panels are toxic. Yeah, I mean, yeah, so is coal. Coal's toxic. Again, um, nothing is perfect. You could have, you know, you don't want to live by a coal plant. You don't want to handle oil, all right, directly. You want to have that processed, and living near that process station is an issue. Gasoline, you know, isn't the best thing always to breathe in, right? So we that's why we went unleaded. Solar panels can be toxic, absolutely. You have to be able to deal with that. No one wants to live near a nuclear waste, obviously. Solar wind turbines, you have to replace them, and fiberglass isn't exactly the most environmental feature to bury. So there's that. There is no 100% perfect um, energy source. There isn't. I'm not going to make that argument. But there are ways to go about improving technology. So let's see here. Do we have anything else? We're closing in at 9 o'clock. Let's see if we have any more. Uh, oh, I don't know about solar panels being exponentially more toxic than coal or petroleum. I don't know about that. That that's a bit much. I agree that there are toxic components, absolutely. Um, but I'm willing to bet that you don't want to breathe in coal. Yeah. But hey, you do you, my man. It's all good. Let's see here. Anything else? Oh my God, it's really active on YouTube. The best university is the one that you feel comfortable learning in. So you might be more comfortable with large classes. So Penn State might be perfect for you. Um, it's 5-3 now. What is with the sixth inning? Jesus Christ. Um, I just don't get it. I don't get it. Can't we just get through the sixth inning without giving up the lead? Yeah. Ah, jeez. All right. Okay, yeah. So for me, I like smaller classes. So SUNY Oswego was perfect for me. It could also be a financial issue as well. You have to pick the right college that's right for you. There is no best university, in my opinion. Let's see. Water can be toxic if you drink too much of it. Yeah, that is true. Uh, with 10 for oh, I don't judge other people's forecasts. All I could say is that I prefer staying at 7. It just has a higher better reliable data, put it that way. Okay, and it is 9 o'clock, and wow, we've had an active night. Wow. Let's see here.
Apologies to anybody that was watching on Facebook when it crashed.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't control that. I know people are working. Yeah. Well, all right. So I think that we had a very fun meet and fun discussion tonight. Thank you again for all of the great questions. Most likely we'll hear more about solar panels and whatnot going forward, so we'll see how that works out. Um, Again, continue to read, continue to push the boundaries, continue to ask questions and disagree with me. That's all good. That's what we're here for. And for the love of God, can we get the Mets to freaking close out the sixth inning without blowing the lead? We'll see. I don't know. But if there's any screaming, it's probably me if they blow this game because they can't afford to, especially with the Phillies winning. Let's see here. It's pitch and of course not. No, of course not. All right, I'm going to go before I lose my freaking mind. I will talk to you guys next week. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful Independence Day weekend. Enjoy it. It's going to be beautiful. And as always, stay safe out there.